Hello and welcome to the Creative Connection podcast. I was having a slight technical issue this morning. That is why I'm about 30 minutes later than I would like to be. But you know what? I think that is on purpose. I think the universe is setting that up for us today. So, the Creative Connection, if you have just found us for the first time, I am Cyndi Thompson, your host, and I created this podcast to be a weekly conversation, either just with me or with friends of mine, where we are talking about connection as human beings and as creative beings on this planet. It is my belief that we are all called to do some form of creativity. Now, for some of us, that is art. For others of us, that is leadership. For others of that, it is having tough conversations with people and being really good at that. So today's episode is about multitudes of things. So, as a small business owner, or as a leader in a company, or as a person that manages a house or a family, or as an artist, every once in a while we step back and we look at what we've been doing and we wonder whether it matters. Today's episode is about when being seen really matters. And this came out of some personal reflections that I've been doing in my own business. So, for those that have followed me for a while, you know that I work with artists, primarily actors, some musicians, some writers, a few playwrights, and then other visual artists and photographers. So, that's one bucket of people that are drawn to me because they see value in how I might be able to help them. Another group is leaders in company, and primarily women leaders who have climbed the corporate ladder and gotten to a rung that they'd like to go higher. Or once they reach there, they're like, is this really where I want to be? Figure out if, in fact, that is the right spot for them. Do they want to go higher? Do they want to go back down to a different level? Is this even the right company? And we do that through the process of going within, doing some inner work. And the last group of people that are drawn to me are women who are in transition. I have had, as a woman that is nearly 65, I have gone through many transitions in my life. I was a competitive swimmer. I was, in fact, training to do the Pan Am Games back in the day when the Pan Am Games were brand new. I was a synchronized swimmer, training also to do that. And then there was a time in my life where I was an actor and training to be a professional actor to move myself to New York City and be on stage. And then there was a time where I really wanted to sing, so I was beefing up my instrument of my vocal cords so that I could sing. What is interesting is all of those different rungs led up to me becoming a human. How do I want to put this? I was working for a chain of retail stores, and I was finally given the opportunity to lead a department and then an area and then a larger area. And then the corporate office went, what is she doing? She has transformed what is happening in her area of the world. And we need to replicate that because whatever she's doing, we all need to do. Think of when Harry met Sally in Katz's Deli. That's what the corporate office was seeing about me. So then I became a training and development person, and I was creating training programs and I was rolling those training programs out. And after I left that chain of department stores, I was doing it again, but I was doing it in smaller spaces. And then I stepped back from work and became the mother of three sons, all with their own unique talents and visions, and all being creative beings. That's when I realized that we all have a creative element to us, but some of us shun it and shut it down. So today's episode is about those moments in our lives when being seen actually matters. And I don't mean this in a performative way, I mean it in a consequential way. So I thought I would start with a story today, a very recent story, one from last night, and launch into I've got about 5 things that I'd like to touch on today. And as is usual, I have an outline here to make sure that I don't miss any of those. So I am an occasional Toastmaster. And what I mean by that is I participate in Toastmasters as long as it fits around the other things I have going in my life, like directing plays, because I am an artistic managing director for a very small community theater near where I am that has been in business for 41 years. I am the second artistic manager in that amount of time. I took over from a good friend of mine, and I direct a minimum of 2 shows a year. And when I have the opportunity, I teach as an extension of that. I also belong to a very large international women's organization where we help to motivate, educate, and celebrate women. And then another hat I wear is as a small business owner, coach. And I use that skill in a multitude of different ways. Well, last night at Toastmasters, they were short in people that would lead certain segments of it. So I said I would do table topics. And for those of you that are familiar with Toastmasters, you know that table topics is your moment to extemporaneously speak on a topic that is provided by the table topics master. And our grammarian last night, the person who provided with us with a word that she wanted us to use in a sentence, was advocate or advocacy. I already come with the idea that we have the Olympics going on, and I live here in the greater Seattle area, and we just won the Super Bowl. And then I'm getting ready to do auditions for the play at my small theater. And I am presently working with a middle school group to put on a play in about 4 weeks. And so with all of that, and primarily thinking about those 12, 13, and 14-year-olds, I decided that I wanted the table topic to be helping to uplift you and send you down the path that you have taken. Now, I know that I just had a little bit of an internet interruption, so I'm going to repeat what I just said. Someone who helped send you down the path of who you've become or are still becoming. And I used the word advocate. I said, so with the Olympics going on, I was thinking about all the people in my life that had helped propel me to the place I am now. And I had previously shared with the Toastmasters group, if you remember that story that I shared about the time that I'd been told that I was tone deaf, and my mother advocating for me to learn music and helping to find a teacher for me. Well, today I want to speak about that teacher. That teacher became my Sherpa for life. So I only had her from the time I was age 10 to the time I was 18. But over the years from 18 and on, there were times and things that said to me that I remembered and helped me in the moment. So that was the topic that I gave them last night. And I explained to them that this is your moment to extemporaneously think quickly on your toes and share a story. And I had made the decision before getting there that I was going to call on people, but my grammarian decided to share a story first. And so then I moved from her to my left, which would have been their right around the table, so clockwise. And the first person gave a story, and the second person gave the story, and the third person gave the story, and the fourth person, and the fifth person didn't have a story to give, but the sixth person did. And then the seventh person is not ready to speak to the group. And then we went back to that fifth person. And almost everyone used the word advocate or advocacy. And they all were so into the topic, they went over our 1 minute that we're allowed to do. But I got to thinking about that on my drive home. And a comment that the general evaluator of the meeting gave, which was, it was such an engaging topic. And Cyndi, you were so engaging in how you gave us that topic and your own story. We all felt compelled to speak. And so I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about that in relationship to where I want to see my business, my life go in the next 12 to 5 years. I think I've got about 5 years in me of continuing the work that I'm doing. And I went, it really isn't about readiness. We can be as ready as we think we are and still stall ourselves. It is about having the courage to act on the readiness that we are doing for ourselves. So the insight that I had was all of those things that I had done in my life, and people like my piano teacher, Mrs. Mord, Karen Mord, who has since left this plane of existence, but I know that she is still around me. She still lives in the books that I have that I gathered from her as a student, in the piano that she helped me learn how to play. And in that insight to this, everything is preparing me to stand up and act in a moment like that. I had no script in front of me. I made no notes. I did that on purpose. I think I wanted to role model what it meant to be extemporaneous. And I went into there with nothing but, it was Mrs. Mord I wanted to speak about. I had no idea what the grammarian's word was going to be. And it was to just go with the flow. Now, a lot of us in our lifetime don't necessarily like to go with the flow. Why? Because nerves kick in. Our body tells us that we may not be safe if we act. Take a moment, just a moment, and think about a time that you had prepared and prepared and prepared and you were ready to do something. And a little voice in your head said, this isn't safe. Maybe you're not ready enough. And I would say probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 75% of us will turn around and walk away. I think about the very first play that I wanted to audition for. I got to that door to go in to do the audition, and I turned around and walked away because I was scared. And I was scared because of a little voice in my head said, oh, you're not good enough. I recently, in the last several years, went to another audition where I wasn't sure I wanted to audition, not because I didn't think I could get a role in it, but I had not done a lot of the work I had done in the years prior of preparing monologues and practicing them and really having them down 100%. And so I almost canceled my audition spot. But I decided I'd show up and I'd do it. And I basically knew the monologue And I knew the director, and I knew the assistant director, and I knew the producer, and I knew the stage manager. But I'd never auditioned for them. I actually had directed with them. So I walked in, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's you." And so we had this short little conversation, and then I did my audition. Now, I know that I did not get all the words right. And I know that I didn't do it exactly the way I had prepared it, readied it. But when I was all done, I felt calm. And I felt like I had just expanded my capacity to do something that was hard. So that's me. But that's come with a lot of, for the last 5 years, I've spent an awful lot of time in paying attention to what my body does when I put myself in situations that could be nerve-wracking or nerve-rattling or disruptive. And there are some things that I know that you can do to help settle that. So the first thing is we have to understand what our body does. And each of us is going to be different. For some of us, it's going to be your nervous system, and it's going to be your heart is racing and your hands start to sweat. And you know that as you have prepared in your body, everything's rising, rising, rising to your head. And then everything escapes your head. And now your mind is blank. This is where artists, auditioners, speakers, and even leaders feel like this is the moment they feel like they're not good enough. They're not doing a good job. I challenge that. I challenge that. What is happening is your nervous system and your body thinks that you are being threatened. And your ego kicks in, and that voice in the back of your head starts to rattle on about how you can't. But deep down inside, there's another voice that says, "No, I can." It's a question of which voice is louder. So I have a practical tip for you in this category. If you find yourself at an audition, about to give a presentation about something you've created, you are leading a new group, or you have to outline what's coming up for your group, before you walk into the room, close your eyes to shut out all of the distractions. Take a deep breath in and let it sit all the way down into your belly. Now your body will try and fight this. And let it hold or sit there for a second or two and then release it. Do this 3, 4, sometimes 5 times. And then put a hand on your heart and a hand on your belly and do it again. Make sure your feet are shoulder width apart and ground to the space that you are in, and breathe. That will allow you to come back into your body, because what's happened is you have left your body. You have gone into what we call head bubble. And you want to bring yourself back to Dantian, or your power center, and that's in your belly. But it takes your breath to do that. This is the first step to moving towards embodying your life, to making decisions in your life that are your decisions to make, not your ego, not your super ego, and not the influences that are out there in the world trying to distract you. I spent quite a bit of time last week in this because I didn't feel like I was doing as good of experience as I wanted to with some of the things I've been doing in my business. And it was not a critical eye I was looking at. I was trying to stand back and go, okay, what am I doing well? And what needs to shift or change? So, the question that I've been sitting with, and I encourage you to sit with this too, be very transparent with yourself. But first of all, ground, do what we just did. And something that I have been asking myself a lot lately, and I wrote this down because I wanted to get it right, is am I helping the people that I'm working with reflect on where they are, or am I helping them to prepare? I want to be helping them to prepare, to go out and act, to go out and do. But my hindsight is telling me that I am doing more in the category of helping people reflect. That was huge for me. I was looking at some statistics here on YouTube. I was looking at some statistics elsewhere. And I had done a lot of personal reflection, which I was asking other people to do as well, but not then saying to them, go out and do. Now, interestingly enough, and if you are a subscriber to my channel, or even if you are not, go find the short, I think it's 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes, maximum 10 minutes video that I did in probably August. I was working with a young actor that wanted something to help prepare them enter the room for an audition. So I did a pause, connect confidence into an audition, short little video, and it has had over 3,000 views. Nothing else on my channel has, but that video has. And when I looked at the contents of that video versus some of the other videos I've done, it's because it was about action. It was giving a practical tool for you to go out and act. And I will tell you, even if you are not an actor, there is something in there for you. So go find that video and see that the realization that all this other fluff that I've been doing around and about my channel is all good stuff. Do not get me wrong. There's grounding, there's presence, there's understanding ourselves. But now it's the time to step out and do. So I've come to the realization that while readiness matters, readying for a presentation, an audition, a conversation, the next chapter at work, the next chapter in your life, the work isn't about fixing yourself. It's more about strengthening your capacity to be seen. And if you're going to be seen, it's also about increasing your capacity to be heard. So the decision that I've made is that is the direction and the energy that I'm going to explore this year. And if you are along for the ride, and if this resonates with you, I'm in the process of outlining what I call center and focus. Center and focus. Centering in our bodies, in our embodiment of who we are, and focusing on the next step that I have to take. And being mindful of the steps that lead to the big picture action item. One might call them milestones and one might call them stepping stones, but every one of those matters to get to wherever we're going. So as I'm thinking about this 12 months and then the preceding 60 months after that in my 5 years, what are the steps that I need to take, and how do I need to center and focus myself in order to take them? I have a closing reflection for you today. And while I said that reflecting is good, this has a little bit of action to it. And I have three I couldn't pick which one I wanted to do, so I'm going to share all three, allowing you to pick the one that is the best for you in this moment. And perhaps you might come back and do the others later. So the first one is, where in your life are you preparing privately for something you haven't yet stepped into publicly? I'll repeat that. Where in your life are you preparing privately for something you haven't yet stepped into publicly? You have an idea, but you have not told anyone what that idea is. Maybe it's because of fear of failure. Maybe it's because it's big and they might doubt you, judge you, throw doubt at you. So what is it? The second one is, what moment ahead of you actually matters? And are you preparing your body for it? And if so, how? What moment ahead of you actually matters? And are you preparing your body for it? The last one. And this, I guess, is what I stumbled upon in my reflection in looking at where I was last year in my business and where I am going this year. Are you doing inner work, or are you preparing to be seen? Are you doing inner work, or are you preparing to be seen? We all walk different paths, but here are the things that I know that connect us. We all have a body, and we all have a mind, and we all have a spirit of self, a spirit of a higher power, a spirit that is outside of us. We all call that something different. But because we all have a body and we all have a mind and we all have some sort of spiritual perception, we are all similar. And the thing that I know is that we can do more and more inner work and nothing changes unless we decide to integrate that inner work to our outer world. And that's the creative connection. How are we connected to ourselves? How are we connected to others? How do you know me? Do you just know me here? Or do you know me elsewhere? So calm comes from inner work. Capacity comes from doing. If your body is reacting visibly because of pressure, calming ourselves down helps, but unless we do, we are not increasing our capacity to do. And we will still feel that pressure. It may never go away. Think about public speaking. There are a lot of people that do not like to speak in public and probably never will. But here's the thing I know. We all are at some point in time in our lives required to speak in public in front of other people. It could be 2 people. It could be 3. It could be 100, or it could be thousands. We are all called to speak in front of others. And if we don't want our body to continue to visibly shrink under that pressure, we need to practice. We need to do. What happens? I'm curious. You can put a chat in or you can send me a message. What happens when we know our own story, but we struggle to share it? Having just recently completed my memoir and sent it on to editors, and I'm in the editing process now for release later in the year. I know that the stories that are in my memoir, I held onto with a death grip. They were me. They were a part of my story. And unfortunately, by my holding on to them, I continued to have those struggles over and over and over again. And what I have noticed since I got all of that on paper and I have begun sharing it and speaking about it, I am finding that it is easy to release some of the stories. Now, mind you, I still have some of the outcome of those stories in terms of there's a little bit of trauma, or there's a little bit of anxiety, or there's a little bit of this or that. There's also a lot of positive things because I can actually talk about some of the things that I experienced in my life, which has allowed me to speak more. So, how do we prepare ourselves to speak more, to be seen more, to be heard more? If that is something that you yourself are struggling with, then I encourage you to go to my website. It's going to be in the show notes, but it's my name, Cyndithomsen.net, N-E-T, and look for Center and Focus. There's a great overview there of what it is, and I'm still building the landing page for it, but it is a way for you to center yourself and focus so that you can act, you can step forward in your life. So As I conclude today, if this episode resonates with you at all, and you're not a subscriber, subscribe. Go and find my short little 10-minute video on confidence to audition and see what I'm talking about with regards to embodiment and acting. And then go to my webpage and check out Center and Focus. And I am always open to having conversations about this. I have worked with, over the course of the last almost 10 years, I have worked with probably in the neighborhood of about 250 people with regards to auditioning, presentation, asking for what they needed at work, training them to be able to take steps to move forward. And I would love to be able to help you if that is something that you are challenged with. So until next time, I wish you much good action. And I was looking for, here it is. I wanted to close with a sentence. When your life is inviting you to step forward, are you preparing your body, your mind, or your spirit to take the action? It is my belief that you need to prepare all three and then take the action. Blessings to you until next week, and thank you for being here.